Hey everybody, this is Perch. I did something mildly manipulative. Not sure if that's I'm not sure if it's clever or something I should be ashamed of, but we'll talk about it later. It's actually a pretty curious story that I suspect many of you will like, or I don't know. Some of you will like it, some of you will really hate it. But it is what it is. But did a little experiment on Twitter, and it took 12 hours, but took the bait, and yeah, interesting. It was an interesting experiment. Probably by the time I post this, several days will have gone by. But anyway, no, if you're paying incredibly close attention, you probably know what's going on. But if you're paying incredibly close attention, then I'm slightly concerned. Anyway, this whole concept of DC's business and in effect Marvel's business, anyone else, um, there is this regular kind of routine that comes up talking about how the publishing arms are going to stop printing comics. And that is how it's described: stop printing comics, stop putting out comics. It's going to die. The business is going to get shut down. It's finality. Now, normally what happens is a few months later, something occurs that is negative news. Sales go down, or an executive leaves, or something along those lines, or even something that's kind of tangentially related, like Warner Media gets sold and DC gets sold along with it. So DC gets sold. And a lot of people are like, well, that's what I was talking about all along. I know he said shut down and stop printing comics, but what I really meant was that, Bob Harris was going to get let go, and a couple other people, and, they were going to move to an open floor plan rather than have offices. It's like, okay. But I believe one moment is coming soon, not the death of publishing comics like some of the other videos. The problem is when those things are said, that the entire business is going to shut down and stop printing comics, it ignores a very core aspect of their business. And that is all of the tangential things beyond selling floppies, which is where a decent amount of the money comes from. That is the business. I've had some artists like, that's not how it works. No, that is exactly how it works. You just never knew about it because you weren't involved in those deals. And quite frankly, if you're a creator and you see that your book or you're being put on something that is attached to anything, this is where do a little bit of work for yourself, for your own wallet. Check out if the book you're working on has a video game deal or a cartoon deal or a merchandise deal or anything that it's attached to. Is the character you're working on, if you're working on Batman, it's going to be a hard thing to do. But if you're working on some of the others, pretty easy to spot. Well, the company's making money off that outside of the floppy sales. Now, the contract you signed to do the art or the writing or whatever it happened to be for that comic gave you payment based on that comic, that one piece. But understand that you may be getting paid on the thing they don't inherently care about, but are doing to achieve money somewhere else, which is what's happening. So you are in effect making them money that you're seeing no royalty, no return on at all, because it's a whole side deal. Anyway, I'm off track a little bit. Regardless, when people talk about the business completely imploding and being shut down, keep in mind, because this is always, whenever I make these arguments, people show up, and they're going to do it in this video as well, and say, oh, so everything's perfect. Well, clearly not. Clearly, I have not deleted a single video that I have put up, not one. And the various individuals who have tried to false flag or copyright strike things, I've won every single time. By the way, the people who do that always come from the same location. Always. It's always the same small pool. But all the videos are up there. All of them. I've been incredibly consistent on this. The comic business is not healthy. It's not healthy for the people who work in it. It's not healthy for the way they're selling it. And by and large, it's turned into a kind of sit and maintain business where people are perfectly comfortable letting these profits and properties kind of linger. That's not healthy. So if you've already started to hit the old backspace key, if you started to type, Perch always says everything is fine, you're an idiot. And by the way, lots of people see that. You're fooling nobody but maybe the small cadre of morons around you who don't bother to read. The business is clearly not healthy. That is a different statement that it's going to get shut down because the business is turning a profit. It's not cash flow negative. It's exciting to think so, perhaps, but it's not. Nor is it being propped up with ESG funds that magically are coming from the government. That's not happening either. Money is being made. It's just being made from other sources. And that is unhealthy. Absolutely unhealthy. Nobody could look at the comic industry. Nobody, even the most diehard, Mark Brooks, whoever it happens to be, even the people who go on Twitter saying, I see the numbers are great from this Comics Beat article from April. What? I thought comics were dying. Okay, come on. Stop being ridiculous. You know it as much as everybody else. This is not a healthy business to be in. Evidence A, the amount of creators who are going to GoFundMe to do things, the amount of artists and writers who get bounced off of a book with no warning, who have to basically claw information out of the publishers, who may have a pitch that they don't hear back from a year. All that stuff's unhealthy, thoroughly unhealthy. This is not a great business. And if you're taking your basically barometer of whether a business is healthy or unhealthy from some website that writes DC Comics to shut down in May, says YouTuber, or the Beat, which says record profits, please ignore where all these profits are coming from and the fact that very few of them are coming from US superhero comics or the traditional big players in it. But it's doing great. Those two things are extremes. See them as extremes, because they are. But I want to point out one thing that would be incredibly healthy and good for comics to do, that they should start doing like now. And with any luck, we will see this happen in the near future. And when you see this happen, people are going to go out like, see, I told you, they're dying. That's what they're going to say. But in many ways, this will be the smartest, healthiest move that the comic, big publishers, the big two, can make. And it will be a sign that somebody gives a shit. And that's good. So what is it? It's trimming back their line. I fully expect for DC and Marvel to cut their line by, 25%. I absolutely expect that to happen. The reality is both companies are putting out 60, 70, 80 comics a month at different times. That's way too many. It is a shelf-packing strategy that they used in the 70s and 80s when the newsstand exists to try and just push other people off the shelf through volume. It's arguable if it was successful then. Meaning there's plenty of evidence, if you really look at the numbers, that the shelf-packing was actually detrimental, even in that scenario. There's zero evidence it's successful now. In fact, there's plenty of evidence that says it's not. Yet, and this goes back to the statement earlier, these unhealthy comic companies continue to use it. It's an indication of poor business skill, a lack of understanding of the numbers and profits and what's going on, and just laziness. It's literally a strategy Marvel has used for decades, and nobody has bothered to go, hey, you know what, we should probably update this and do something else. That's incompetence. Absolutely, it's incompetence. But if you see an announcement that says DC to cut 25% of their titles, you should take that as very positive news for DC. It's positive news because somebody woke up and said, hey, we're putting out a bunch of books that are cannibalizing marketing efforts, that mean we can't focus on the line, that are running too much. I mean, it's kind of sad that, running the books we have stresses our system, but clearly it does because editorial mistakes get through and lots of other things. And we're just all over the place. There's not good thought into what we're selling. So if you were to cut back on your line, the message it would send me is, hey, they're not just going to throw money down a well. They're actually going to try and manage their business. That's a positive. Right now, both companies have, forgive the term, fuck you money to burn. They're not wildly profitable, but they're able to put out the books they're doing because they have a combination of money that comes in from other sources, funded parents that are not really worried about whether they turn a big profit or not because the value in the IP is elsewhere, heavy licensing, and incredibly and increasingly cheap talent. That's what the businesses have moved themselves into. And that is a sustainable business, not a good business, but good and sustainable are not always the same thing. It is a business that can and will keep clocking along, but is at its core unhealthy. But unhealthy is not dead. And you could say, it's a nuance. It's the same thing. It's not, though. Because if you're believing that, the destination point in a few months' time is the elimination and publishing of all comics, you're wrong. And by the way, this has been going on since the very beginning of this channel, literally one of the first videos. And there's plenty of people like, well, we'll see. We'll see we'll see if you're willing to admit your mistake in 6 months. It's been 6 months. It's been a year. It's been 2 years. It's been 3 years. Still clocking along. You feel free to throw down that challenge again. Let's see where we are in 6 months. And by the way, absolutely things can happen. Absolutely could. But like anything, it's odds. The odds of the company shutting down and stopping publishing comics are incredibly low. Only a complete sucker would bet on that. Would Vegas bet on that? But I am optimistic. I'm hopeful because, again, I would see it as a very positive sign that, adults are in charge and trying to manage the business. If the line is reduced, that is a positive thing. Now, I'll give a little bit more detail for one reason. There's going to be people who do not understand what's being said here and go, well, how is Perch saying that actually cutting comics means healthy? Well, it's like anything. It's a farmer will tell you, a convenience store business will tell you. If you have excess product that does not sell in high quantities, that you do not understand, that you can't market or promote properly, the solution is to cut back to get to a streamlined business. I think nearly every industry, from software to automotive to pharmaceutical, every industry has experienced it at some point. It's called trim the line to get to strength. That's what it's all about. But the companies that do that have competent people at the wheel, competent businessmen or women who are able to make these decisions. Now, people are going to hate this analogy, but it is an example of this at play. For a period of time, Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, and that group had the theory of we're going to pump out a Star Wars movie a year. And with Solo and some of them, they clearly read the numbers and said, yeah, this is going to become the law of diminishing returns really quickly. We're putting out more product than we know what to do with, and that our audience wants to consume. So cut back. That was a wise decision on Disney's part. The interest in Star Wars merchandise and some of the licensing has ticked up. The movies, well, there haven't been any since the last one. But, the interest on some of their Disney Plus efforts have helped. Yeah, I understand about Obi-Wan, but still, The Mandalorian, these other titles, they're slowly trying to figure out their way. By the way, I'm not saying Star Wars is healthy either, but I am saying that Star Wars made that whole franchise in Disney made a smart move in trimming back the line. Because the alternative, and it's the alternative you can see on display with Marvel and DC, would have been to say, seems like less and less interest. Seems like we're having trouble getting, the licensing and sponsors on board. We're having trouble with the marketing. I know, double the movies. Wait, what? Did I hear you right, sir? You said double the movies? We're having trouble. We're having trouble selling what we've got, and you want us to increase? Yeah, that's right. We'll just force more down people's throats, and that's bound to fix everything. That, in effect, is what you see with Marvel and DC. So, to Disney and Star Wars' credit, at least they cut back, and that really is the congratulations, you tried medal of how largely that business has been run. But still, I guess my point there is it could be worse. And, evidence A is the comic publishers who continue to go down this unhealthy path. So I hope they do that. It would be smart for their business. To me, I get more worried about Marvel and DC when I look at the solicitations, this pedal to the metal. We're doing 90 comics this month, fucker. Take it. That's a far more risky sign to me than if there's a press release. And by the way, one of the reasons why I think the comic companies do not want to do this and aren't doing it, even though it makes common sense business logic to do it, is because they know full well that there will be, and as much as they say we don't care, they absolutely care. There will be videos made of like, failing business. Look at you having to cut titles. I thought everything was great, but here you are cutting titles, you dumbass. And Marvel, they can't, especially Marvel. I'm not sure about DC in this regard, but particularly Marvel, their ego can't take it. Literally, there are decisions made to keep titles and sometimes to do titles purely because they want to be right. They want to be able to claim, no, we're not listening to you. That's insane for a grown company and grown people to do that, but absolutely that has gone on at Marvel, and it's going on today. There is no reason to be publishing all those books. But you know, if you, the person listening, you know for a fact that if people cut back, it would be a complete shitstorm of you guys suck, and there would be a parade of laughter around it. And I mean, again, this is the dynamic that's now exists between the publisher and the customers. So I mean, everybody, the publisher gets what they asked for in that regard. They leaned into this dumb battle. So that's, there you go, live with it. But if that moment came to pass, I'm going to say this is the smartest, healthiest business move I've seen in a while. So good. Wanted to give you that perspective. I hear rumblings from time to time that is the plan, or that is the desire to cut back, cut spend, cut back. Actually, a cut spend isn't even as big of a factor. I mean, these comics cost all close to nothing to make. But there you go. I hope it happens. It would be healthy. And whether I like the people in charge, or I like the business, or I like the product, I do like seeing businesses make healthy moves. It restores my general faith in an organized world. But there you have it. Anyway, questions, comments below. Like and subscribe. Crap all over me. Thanks for listening.